Marriage isn't easy. A royal marriage is even more complicated. A royal marriage in ancient Rome? What can I say? Let the bloodshed begin. Despite all its remarkable advances in science, architecture, law, and democracy, Rome never got down with succession. Despite the Emperor of Rome being one of the most powerful seats on earth for its time, there was never a clear legislative path, and people would try anything to get it. Murdering competitors, marrying in deceit, concocting affairs, and manufacturing lies were all fair game. Welcome to History on Fleek. Today we look at the 3 worst royal marriages of ancient Rome. Marrying into any family isn't easy, but by the sounds of things, marrying into an established family in ancient Rome was nothing short of an ordeal. So to begin at the beginning, Livia Drusilla was born into Roman nobility in 59 BC. Her father was a Roman senator. Livia initially married Tiberius Claudius Nero in 43 AD, a Roman statesman and also her cousin. It maybe shouldn't come as a surprise her life would be entwined in the allegiances and ever-shifting politics of ancient Rome. For these newlyweds, the greater state of Rome would be entirely shaping of their futures. Barely a year after their marriage, Julius Caesar would be felled by assassins, with Tiberius Nero taking the side of the usurpers. Caesar had no children to claim his royal throne, leaving his adopted son Octavian as the heir apparent. Tiberius Nero would be one of several prominent Romans leading the charge against him. So severe was the conflict for Rome's throne, Livia Drusilla, Tiberius Nero, and their firstborn son were forced to flee to Greece in 40 AD. Peace would befall Rome as Octavian would ward off his attackers, leading to a little pocket of peace between the two triumvirate to rule and divide Rome. The wedded bliss of Livia and Nero wasn't to be, as upon returning to Rome in 39 AD, Livia Drusilla met Octavian himself. Despite her being on the run from him for some time and her husband leading the charge against him, Octavian fell near instantly in love. Chaos ensued. Octavian instantly left his wife, on the day she gave birth to their daughter no less, and apparently, Livia and Nero were forced to divorce on Octavian's orders. In a further breathtaking turn, Tiberius Nero would give his ex-wife away to Octavian on the altar, as a father would. I believe we've reached the rare crossroads of heartwarming yet exploitative. Octavian, or as he would be known, Emperor Augustus, would marry Livia and they would remain married for the next 50 years. The story doesn't quite stop there, however. Livia would enjoy a rare status for a Roman wife in a world of patriarchal family structure. She could lobby and petition her husband, essentially all the status of a privileged counselor. Augustus and Livia would be a benchmark for everyday Romans to look up to, successful but not opulent, well off but not lavish. Despite the unexpected success of their union, they only produced one child, and the child was a daughter. This is truly when the trouble began for this labored union. Livia began pushing her sons from her previous marriage, Drusus and Tiberius, for succession. Drusus would be wedded to Augustus's niece, but would be felled in battle. Tiberius, on the other hand, I take it you've heard of Emperor Tiberius. So she pushed her kids for the throne. Didn't they all do that anyways? Yeah, it's just the suspicious deaths of anyone on the other side of the family that raises eyebrows. Both adoptive sons of Augustus, who were his grandsons biologically, those Romans, met untimely ends, and Livia was a prime suspect for such mysterious ends. When Augustus died in 19 AD, the rumor mill flooded with claims Livia had poisoned her husband with figs. Livia did succeed in bringing her son Tiberius to the throne, though even he found her to be somewhat overbearing. 8 years into his reign, with his mother at his side, Tiberius would flee to Capri in 22 AD, unable to endure her. Oh, mother. Emperor Nero has been universally memorialized as a tyrannical, debauched figure who would meet his end declared an enemy to the state of Rome. And wouldn't you know it, his married life wasn't a pretty picture either. Just double down on that. Nero is one of the emperors that killed his own mother. Again, not a great omen for happy domesticity ahead. Poppaea Sabina was the daughter of nobility in the reign of Emperor Tiberius. She would be married twice before becoming Empress of Rome and taking the hand of Nero. The exact means by which this marriage came to pass has been legend since the event took place. There is a generally quite murderous vibe to this union, even by Roman standards. Contemporaries such as Tacitus were convinced that Poppaea was the voice in Nero's ear compelling the murder of his mother. However, more modern accounts have outlined the incorrect chronology of this. What is less argued is Poppaea lobbying Nero to divorce and in time murder his first wife. On claims of adultery, Claudia Octavia was exiled to Campania before soldiers arrived to give her a suicide.
Suicide Squad! Attack! That showed him, huh?
Sadly for Empress Poppaea, her husband didn't really need any pushing in the direction of brutality and murder. It is also written, ironically, if the rumor is true, that Nero only declined after his mother's death. In the years that followed 60 AD, Nero would lose much of his moral compass and be easily swayed by basic flattery. When the Great Fire of Rome rocked the state in 64 AD, Nero's decline was perceived as bleeding into the state. A year later, in 65 AD, Empress Poppaea would be no more, as Nero kicked her to death while she was pregnant. A brutal and hideous act was written by contemporaries as an outburst, and by most accounts, near broke Nero. Grief-struck and lost, he went on to marry a boy, Sporus, who is said to have resembled her. Many commentators point to this as little more than a broken man desperately trying to digest his regret. Agrippina the Younger and Claudius are a shining example of everything to avoid in a royal marriage in ancient Rome. Claudius was an emperor that many thought would never be. Dismissed and avoided by both public office and his family due to health conditions in youth, Claudius avoided assassination, unlike other nobles, because most didn't see a threat. He only got the throne after the Praetorian Guard had murdered Caligula, and he was the only surviving male left of the family. Agrippina the Younger would only come into Claudius's consideration as a wife when he was 3 wives in. Quick sidebar, they were also uncle and niece. Not that this seemed to bother anybody. Then again, this was just after the reign of Caligula. When Agrippina and Empress Claudius married on the first day of 49 AD, roaring, excited crowds were nowhere to be found. Maybe the Roman public had caught on to the state's abundant lack of succession protocol and the deceit and murder that usually followed, but this wasn't a popular union. Agrippina was already publicly regarded as out for power and determined to see her sons succeed as emperors. It probably didn't help Agrippina that she actively helped the death of one of her rivals to Claudius's hand in marriage. After their wedding, Agrippina demanded her husband charge Lolia Paulina with black magic. Though he did, Agrippina was clearly a competitive soul who didn't take kindly to challengers. Legend states Agrippina pushed her former rival to suicide. Once married to the throne, Agrippina, as Empress of Rome, wielded the power with an iron fist. She seemingly eliminated just about anybody she didn't like. She didn't have them all killed, mind you. Some would just mysteriously commit suicide with good timing. See Lucius Junius Sallianus Torquatus, her cousin, by the way. So was the pattern. Any potential threat to her position or her son's position as a successor to the throne usually meant they were killed, family or not. All was going to plan for Agrippina's vision. Her son Nero was made successor to Claudius's throne before his own son Britannicus. Though when Claudius got cold feet and began to reconsider his own son for succession, Agrippina went full Agrippina. Though it's been debated, contemporary sources say Claudius was poisoned by tainted mushrooms served to him by Agrippina. Her goal was accomplished. Her son Nero would ascend to the Roman throne, where Agrippina would guide her 17-year-old son over the levers of power, who in turn would go on to become a violent tyrant, who would literally be the death of her. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.